Haunted indeed, written and narrated by the writer's clock. Elegance had always disconcerted Theodore. It was a constant reminder of what could be lost in moments, fleeting, insignificant moments that separated beauty from tragedy. These thoughts ensnared him as his gaze drifted over the mansion that stood menacingly above. It didn't cast shadows, it collected them in its immensity, hoarding the darkness as its own. The moonlit street seemed worlds apart from the foreboding residence that Theodore was now entranced with. With a surge of what some would call stupidity, and what others would label bravery, he strode quickly forward and laid a hand upon the cold doorknob. With grim resolve, he twisted and pushed the glossy obsidian door ajar. He felt rather naked with only his briefcase. Not so much as a thumbtack to defend himself with. With a high, reedy voice, he called, "Hello, it's Theodore Winslow, sir. I've come to discuss the transferal of the property." The startlingly heavy weight of silence stole over the abode. This house seemed to consume any vibrance it was given. His voice, it seemed, did not fall upon deaf ears, but a house too keen to listen. The house surely listened, as a distant thud was heard. Theodore himself felt a shock arc down his spine. His pulse roaring in his ears, he nearly jumped as another thump was heard, followed by two squeaks. It was unmistakably the sound of one walking with a cane. Try as he might, Theodore couldn't manage a whisper, much less a greeting. Clasping his hands firmly behind his back, he simply waited as the thudding grew louder. The man emerged slowly from the room he had occupied. His form was slowly revealed as quite haggard and wispy. Despite this, he moved smoothly, as if he was a dagger being drawn, rusty and old, yet not to be trifled with. The man carried himself with this uneasy aura. The very air seemed to still in his foreboding presence. "It was you who desired this place." He paused on that last word, face contorted as if chewing on a particularly disgusting morsel. The silence was broken, yet Theodore had a strong urge to apologize and flee from this wretched place. His feet, however, remained planted as he returned a curt nod. A predatory scowl spread across the man's face, splitting it nearly in twain. "Despite the stories I'm sure brewed amidst the townsfolk." The last word was teeming with harsh disgust. "They say it's haunted, you see. Polluted with evil." Theodore's brow furrowed as the old man sat heavily in an immaculately carved chair, which didn't show its age. "Well?" intoned Theodore, after a long pause. The old man scowled and cast his eyes to the fireplace, which remained empty. Finally, he whispered, "Yes, yes it is." Theodore took a seat in the opposing chair and looked upon him expectantly. The old man saw this and growled. He sat still and breathed heavily before starting. "A man once lived in this house by the name of Thomas Breath Sr., a rich man by most accounts, yet unbelievably poor indeed. Thomas hadn't felt love from his children in years. That's what happens when you beat them relentlessly, when the only thing residing in their eyes is fear and misery. The man felt no love, so he acted accordingly, with more pain, more sorrow, and eventually death." The old man took a long, shaky sigh and said, "So the old menace put himself, his son, his daughter, and wife in nooses, waxed poetic about misery and love and the virtues of family, and then kicked his wife off that balcony." Theodore stiffened as he looked above, yet the old man continued. "Then He kissed his young, beautiful, brave daughter on her brow before placing his boot upon her back and sending her tumbling to her death. She fought the hardest. He swallowed shakily and looked to where Theodore was also staring. Halfway through the destruction of his entire family, the miserable wretch felt giddy and clambered up on the railing with his son. Thomas then leaned in close to his terrified son and whispered, "Do you love me?" The old man's face twisted into a horrible rage. "Do you know what that pathetic coward said?" he snarled forcefully. Theodore managed to jerk his head from side to side. "That little fucking coward said yes." Silence fell over the room, to be broken again by the old man. Cowards deserve to be punished, and so the young boy was. His monster of a father slipped in glee over the edge before he could murder his only son. Old Thomas Braith Sr. swung beside those who he had murdered as his coward of a son sat whimpering on the rail. The old man spat. Theodore felt paralyzed in his chair, unable to move, yes, but also unable to flee from the images prevailing in his mind over anything else. This place is haunted by the living, not the dead, stalking these halls wrapped in memories. He paused for a long moment before mumbling, "Have the damn place. I was leaving it anyway." Theodore nodded softly and handed him the paperwork to sign over his property for good. The old man then escorted him to the door and slammed it shut behind him. Once it had slammed, a long sigh escaped him, and he stepped into the cold night breeze. It was in the soft glow of a street lamp that he saw the old man's name for the first time scrawled on the transferal papers. Thomas Braith, Jr. Theodore froze while looking back at the shadowy mansion. Haunted indeed,